So my goal for this video is to leave you feeling confident and excited for your upcoming exams. I'm going to give you some tips to help you significantly reduce the workload required, and I'm going to make you feel a lot more motivated and less stressed. Because this is a situation that used to happen to me pretty often in high school, in IGCSE and IB, and in engineering school. So I would have maybe, let's say, 2 weeks left for my exams, but I had left all my studying to the last minute. And if you're a student, you know that this experience of leaving all your studying to the last minute is one of the most painful experiences you can have as a student. It's like you're drowning. I had to be constantly switched on. I had to either be studying or thinking about studying. I didn't even have any time to breathe. My friends would ask me, invite me to do things. I wanted to do my own things. I wanted to play video games. I wanted to even exercise, but I couldn't because I felt like I always had to be switched on. I had to be constantly studying. But at the same time, even though I knew I had to always be studying, I would still distract myself a lot of the day. I would still procrastinate. I'd wake up, I'd come up with excuses like, I didn't sleep well. I'd scroll for literally 2 hours in bed. It would somehow take me 4 hours to get ready for the day. The day would be gone. It would be nighttime. I was constantly distracted, constantly procrastinating. And if I did actually manage to get myself to start studying, I wouldn't know where to begin. I would have zero clarity because I had like 12 weeks of material to do. I didn't know where to start. So in this video, I'm going to give you some tips to help you reduce the workload significantly, focus better, and then a tip to help you boost your motivation and reduce your stress. All right, so by the way, if you want my personal help with your exams, first link in the description, that's my Inner Circle mentorship. That can help you a lot. All right, so let's get into this. First tip I want to give you here is related to rest. So how do we use rest to focus better for longer hours, more intensely? All right, so here's a fantasy that a lot of students have. A lot of students have this fantasy where they want to be studying all day. They want to study for 12-hour days. And I'm not discouraging you from doing that, but you need to have rest periods to actually focus at your best ability. And I'm going to tell you exactly how to rest here to replenish your focus best, because focus is kind of like a muscle. So with your muscles, you can push them hard, but if you don't rest your muscles, if you don't take a rest in between sets, you're going to reach failure and you can't push your muscle any further. Your brain is exactly like that. Your brain reaches failure. If you focus very, very intensely for a long period of time, your brain will reach its limits and you have to rest it. You could probably, push yourself and study for 12 hours a day. But if you were to sprinkle some rest periods in there, you would actually get more work done, even though you're doing less time. All right, so how exactly do we rest? What do we do? So this is the mindset I like to use. I like to rest my body, my eyes, and my mind. So here's exactly what I do. To rest my body and my eyes is very, very simple. I just go outside. I go for a walk around my house, preferably outside though, preferably in the sun, preferably in nature, because nature has been scientifically proven to replenish your thinking ability. So I'd go outside, I would look at distant objects, I would look at close objects. One thing I like to do is I like to track birds. So I like to watch birds just because I like birds, but also when you watch birds, your eyes track. So you're giving your eyes a bit of a rest, you're giving your body a bit of a rest, you're going for a walk, you're doing some light stretches when you do that. So that's how you rest your body. To rest your mind, you simply want to be not focusing because you've just been focusing for a couple hours. So if you go ahead and scroll on social media, number one, you're going to be so stimulated, it's going to be difficult for you to actually get back into that studying mode because when you stimulate yourself, your dopamine also crashes. But the other thing is you're using your focus to do that. So you're not giving your focus system a rest. So you have to enter what's called diffuse mode, where you don't focus on anything. So it's very simple. When you go for a walk, just don't have any technology. Just don't be doing anything. Let your mind fully decompress and relax. And I'll usually rest for at least 10 to 20 minutes. So I'll do like maybe 1.5 hours of work. Then I'll take a 10 to 20 minute break. Then I'll hit another block of 1 to 1.5 hours. That's kind of the cycle I like to work in. If you're somebody who can't focus for such long periods of time, that's okay. It just means your focus muscle needs to be built a bit more. So maybe you can work for 20 minutes and then rest for 5. 20 minutes, rest for 5. And the other thing I really, really love to do for my rest periods is meditation. Literally just like 3 minutes of meditation when I come back to my seat, sit down, and literally just do like 3 minutes of meditation. you come out of that session feeling so fresh. It literally resets your brain. It's such a good thing to do. So I recommend meditation is an amazing thing to do during your rests. All right, so there's one point I want to bring up here. How do we know we need to rest? Because, sometimes you'll feel like you want to rest, but you're not sure. Should I rest now? Should I keep pushing? Here's exactly how you tell. So there's two situations where you might feel like resting. The first situation is when your brain is genuinely at its limit. You've pushed it to its limit. You've thought very, very hard, and you have to rest it. But the other thing is almost a false sense of burnout. It's when you're running away from the discomfort of studying. Let's say studying is beginning to get a little bit hard. Maths is starting to get a bit hard and you want to run away. You want to run away to another subject, or you want to run away and play video games or something. This doesn't mean your brain is at its limit. It just means you're running away from discomfort towards comfort. Maybe you're in fight, flight, or freeze mode and you're kind of entering a sort of survival response. Or maybe you're just running away from boredom. So how do you tell the difference? So it's kind of hard to explain, but it's kind of like a feeling you get in your body and your mind. When you're feeling like running away from discomfort towards some kind of stimulation, you usually feel very uncomfortable in your body. Maybe your chest feels very tight. Maybe you're feeling this kind of like pulling feeling to go like scroll on your phone or something. That's how you know you're just craving stimulation. You're running away from discomfort. But when you've genuinely pushed your brain to its limit, you don't feel like pulling yourself to anything. Your brain feels kind of mushy. It kind of feels like you've taken your brain to failure. It's kind of hard to explain. But when you think really hard, especially when you do a challenging subject and you really push your mind to its limit and you think really hard, you release a lot of cortisol. Right? So when you release a lot of cortisol, I tend to have like these sensations around here that are kind of like a bit of pressure, that kind of feeling. Kind of like the feeling of like, oh, my brain hurty. And a lot of students, when they start to get that feeling, they want to run away. They want to run away like, oh, this feels so painful. My brain hurty, mama, please. I want to go away. I want to go home. They run away from this brain hurty kind of feeling. But the mindset I want to give you is, just like in the gym, you can learn to enjoy that burn when you push your muscles to their limit. When you're in the brain gym, when you're studying, you can start to associate that feeling with growth. You can start to associate that feeling with pushing yourself to your limits. So a mindset I like to have is, when I start to feel like running away because my brain is starting to hurt, I push a little bit further. I push my limits a little bit further. And the more you do that, the more you can be okay with this discomfort happening in your thinking muscles, the more your focus will grow. And I promise your focus will get better and better and better, because focus is like a muscle. All right, the next tip I want to give you is how to significantly reduce the workload required. So what you need to understand is that in a subject, not every topic is weighted equally. Some topics are worth more than other topics. So here's the approach I used to do when I would seriously mess up during exam season. I would have like 3 weeks left. Let's say I had 10 days left. I would spend the first 8 days chilling, taking my time, going through week 1, writing detailed notes, going through week 2, writing detailed notes. And then suddenly there would be 2 days left, and I had half the subject left. And that was the most important half. And I hadn't even begun doing questions, which is where the real learning happens. Suddenly I would have this rush where I had to do all my studying suddenly in 2 days because I took my time with the rest of the subject. Most students feel like they want to cover the entire subject. They want to take their time with everything. Because here's the thing, students try to go wide. They try to skim the entire subject really, really fast, and they end up learning nothing. They try to go through all their notes. In reality, the best thing to do is focus your energy on the topics that you know the least, that are worth the most. Because here's a question I like to ask myself. If the exam was tomorrow, what should I do to boost my grade in the most effective way possible? If the exam was tomorrow, what could I do right now that would boost my grade the most? So chances are it's going to be those topics that are worth the most on the exams, or those topics that you're the worst on. If you spend an hour doing your worst topic, you're going to make more gains in the subject than if you were to spend that hour skimming through all your notes. So how do you find those topics? Well, the best way to do it is to go to past exam papers or to go to your questions. The past exam papers they'll give you patterns. They will literally tell you which topics are worth the most. And they will tell you as well which topics you're the worst at. So ask yourself that question: if my exam was tomorrow, what would I do? And focus your attention on those sections. Do past papers, learn by doing. There's a pyramid, a learning pyramid that I saw online. And it says that we learn 20% of what we read, but we learn 80% of what we do. So for me, I begin doing questions immediately, because doing questions, getting an active recall, is the best way to learn. So I don't wait till the last day to do questions. I don't wait till the last day to test myself. I begin questions immediately. I start doing questions. I learn just enough to do the questions, then I do the question. I learn just enough to do the next question, then I do the question, do the question, do the question. Focus my attention on those topics that I'm the weakest in, and you get the most gains that way. Because the mindset is you can always do those low impact topics later. Start with the ones that are most impact, and you can always do the low impact ones later. And one more thing to mention here is review your mistakes. Because students, if they get a question wrong, if they make a mistake, it affects their confidence. They feel really bad, like, oh, I made a mistake, what's wrong with me? I don't know this. So they try to run away from their mistakes. But the truth is, a mistake is a signal for you. A mistake is telling you, look, this is where you're lacking. This is your weakness. You have to learn this. So just like how athletes, they'll watch their game footage and they'll look for mistakes, because a mistake means, wow, this is an area for me to improve. It's actually an area for you to gain. It's an area for you to grow. So go through your mistakes and your questions. And that is, again, a high impact area where you'll make a lot of growth. I keep mistake cheat sheets and I always review over my mistakes. The next tip I want to give you is, in my opinion, a really big one. So I started helping students with their studying about 2 years ago. And there's a couple habits, there's many things that I realized that most students do. A couple bad habits that I realized most students do, including me. And I'm going to talk about one here. It's the habit of comparing. And you might think like, oh, I don't compare myself to other people. You might want to click off. But when I go through this section, you're going to realize that you probably also compare yourself to other people. And you don't realize it, but it's actually affecting your focus, your performance, and your self-esteem a lot. But especially your focus. It's tanking your focus, and it's making you feel so bad. So the problem is you compare yourself to all the students in your class. You compare yourself to the people you see online, the creators you watch. So for me, this was huge in university, because in high school, I was the top of the class, to be honest. I was, better than everyone academically in the class. I was top of the class. I was outperforming them. And that was all great. But when I went to university, when I went to engineering school, I went to a pretty decent school. I suddenly became average. I went from somebody who saw myself, I had such a, boosted ego. I saw myself as like the top. I was super, super smart. Suddenly I was average, or even below average. It tanked my confidence. It tanked my ego. I would feel so bad opening the group chat, because I would see everyone was ahead of me. Everyone understood the topic better than me. Everyone was watching the lectures on 2 times speed. I had to watch it on 1 time speed. I felt like I was the slowest learner in the class. I was always behind. I would hate it when a student would say like, oh, that topic was so easy. That test was so easy. I barely studied, and they would get better than me, even though I studied really, really hard. So the thing is, this inner turmoil of constantly judging yourself to other people, you're taking your self-worth and you're determining it based on other people. It creates this inner turmoil. You're constantly thinking like, how is everyone faster than me? I'm dumb. I'm behind. I'm going to mess this up again. And it affects you because it increases your cortisol. It makes you stressed, makes you feel, tightness in your body, and it tanks your focus, because all your thoughts are going to how you're behind rather than going to learning. And when you're in this stressed, distracted state, you can't learn to your best ability. You're going to be stressed, and you end up hating exam season. You end up hating studying, because studying, you associate studying with this feeling of not being good enough, of everyone being better than you. And that's why you procrastinate. That's why you can't focus, because you associate studying with this bad feeling. Well, the key shift that you need to understand is everybody's journey is different. No 2 people have the same journey, not just academically, but in every area of their life. Sure, maybe that kid in your class, he was always naturally talented at school. Maybe he could study really fast. Maybe he could learn very fast. Maybe he was naturally talented. But maybe in other areas of his life, he was seriously struggling. Maybe he was struggling to connect with people. Maybe he was struggling socially. Maybe he was struggling with his family life at home. Maybe studying was the only thing he had going for him. Okay, but let's say he was a kid who, in all areas of his life, he seemed to have everything figured out. He seemed to be like the perfect kid. He knew everything. Well, the reality is, his journey is still different to yours. Maybe he didn't have to go through the massive self-doubt and anxiety and pressure that you are under. Maybe every exam season you're under this huge pressure. You constantly doubt yourself. You constantly feel like you're not good enough. And so you're going through this massive resistance. You're studying with this massive resistance inside of you. You know, you feel so tight in your chest. You feel so bad every exam season, and you have to deal with this huge amount of load on you while that kid doesn't. So you're training under much harder conditions. That's why you can't compare yourself, because two people have two different experiences. Maybe he rocks up to the exam hall and he feels completely calm. He just does the exam. While you're under this huge stress, this huge pressure. You're the one who's stronger because you're going through this exam season on hard mode. So you can't compare yourself with that person just because you guys get the same grade. You're the one who had to go through more to achieve it. And because you're going through these harder conditions, it builds you emotionally and it builds your resilience a lot more than that other person. So just like when you lift weights and you lift harder and harder weights, emotions work the same. Emotional resilience, stress tolerance works the same. When you work through these emotions, when you learn to stay calm and take action anyway, you build this emotional resilience and it benefits you in every area of your life. Me, I really had a lot of this resistance when it came to socializing. I always struggled to connect with people. I always felt this, fear when it came to socializing. And when I worked through that, I learned so much. It got me on that journey of learning about my mind. It got me on that journey of building emotional resilience. And it benefited me in every single area of my life. So those students who are naturally pretty talented and they can turn up with no resistance, a lot of them end up falling off later in their life because they don't develop those skills which are necessary for them to push further. And so maybe it sounds cringe, but you can't control the situation you're in. So you may as well use it to train you, to make you stronger. So what I like to do is, instead of comparing myself to other people, because like I said, there's always going to be somebody better who you can compare yourself to, I just compare myself to who I was before. Situations that previously used to make me stressed, can I handle them better? Is my resistance going down? Am I understanding my emotional patterns better? Am I breaking through them? Am I learning about them? So, I look at other people and I appreciate the qualities they have, but I understand they're on a completely different journey to me, and it says nothing about who I am. And I stay focused on my own journey. And I just see, am I getting better than I was last week? Because if you're constantly comparing yourself externally, if you're constantly comparing yourself to other people, one, it's a constant standard that will go up. There's always going to be more people you're comparing yourself to. One day you might be better than everyone else, but the next day you're worse. Instead, just stop comparing yourself altogether. Stop saying you're better than other people. Stop saying you're worse than other people, and focus on your own journey. Because that inner turmoil is going to destroy you, and it's going to destroy your focus and destroy your confidence. So I hope that helped. And if you're on this journey alone and you want personal support from me and a community of other people on this journey working on their minds, first thing in the description, come join us now. I don't know if I'm going to do this again next semester. This offer is only here for this semester. So join now while it's available. But apart from that, see you later.